Headline: Saddam executed at dawn. Story: Saddam Hussein was hanged at dawn on Saturday for crimes against humanity. It was a dramatic, violent death for a leader who brutally ruled Iraq for 3 decades. He was toppled by a US-led invasion in 2003. Headline: US welcomes Saddam hanging, Europe opposes execution. Story: The United States has joined arch-foe Iran in hailing Saddam Hussein's execution, but European powers criticize the use of capital punishment while condemning the former dictator's crimes. Headline: Bombs in Shi'ite areas kill 72 after Saddam hanged. Story: 4 car bombs targeting Shiites in Baghdad and a town south of the capital killed more than 70 people on Saturday, hours after Saddam Hussein was hanged amid fears of revenge by his Sunni Arab supporters. Headline: Deadliest month for US and Iraq in 2 years. Story: December became the deadliest month for US troops in Iraq in 2 years after the US military reported 6 more combat deaths, leaving the tally just 2 short of the emotive 3,000 mark. Headline: Indonesian ferry sinks, 600 people are missing. Story: A crowded Indonesian ferry broke apart and sank in the Java Sea during a violent storm that sent towering waves over its deck, and the vast majority of the nearly 640 passengers were still missing a day later, officials said Saturday. Headline: Manila bows to US over custody of rapist. Story: The Philippines bowed to pressure from Washington over custody of a US Marine convicted of raping a Filipina, transferring him to the American Embassy in Manila. Headline: Ethiopian tanks roll on Somali Islamist call to arms. Story: Ethiopian tanks rumbled south from Mogadishu to attack Somali Islamists on Saturday after the religious movement's leaders called on fighters and residents in the port city of Kismayo to cast off a foreign occupation. Headline: Ford cited friendship in Nixon pardon. Story: Memorial services for former President Gerald Ford began on Friday as a newly published interview he gave The Washington Post suggested he pardoned Richard Nixon partly to spare his friend the stigma of a criminal conviction over Watergate. Headline: AT&T closes BellSouth deal after FCC OK. Story: AT&T Incorporated extended its dominance as the nation's largest provider of phone, wireless and broadband internet services by acquiring BellSouth Corporation in the largest telecommunications takeover in U.S. history. Headline: Tax forms mailed with SEC numbers. Story: Wisconsin's revenue agency said Friday that it sent as many as 170,000 forms to taxpayers with mailing labels mistakenly printed with their Social Security numbers. Headline: Renters gloat over the housing slump. Story: For years, Americans who refused to buy real estate at what they considered excessive prices were ribbed for failing to profit from one of the greatest booms in history. Are now, with the housing market in a slump, renters who set out the boom are finally getting some satisfaction. Headline: Apple says options probe clears its executives. Story: Apple Computer Incorporated gave the most detailed account yet of its stock option practices Friday, clearing CEO Steve Jobs and other current executives of any misconduct. Yet it still isn't clear who was responsible and how much Jobs was involved. Apple also said Friday it is facing several federal lawsuits, including one alleging the company created an illegal monopoly with its iTunes service and iPod portable players. Finally, thirsty man sells dog to buy beer. Story: A German alcoholic sold his stepdaughter's pet beagle to the owner of a bar to pay for beer, the Bild newspaper reported Friday. The girl was only 6. The beagle was later returned.